Hi, it's Michelle Cottle. We're here at the Heroes Summit in Washington, and tonight I've got Charlie Rose, who just finished the most spectacular discussion with Admiral Bill McRaven, the commander of the Special Ops team that took out Osama bin Laden. Now, I wanted to just start off by asking you, because this is a seminal event for a lot of people. It's kind of a moment we all remember. Where were you when you heard the news that bin Laden had been taken out?
I was in the library of my apartment in New York, and I stayed up, obviously, to watch the president, see what he was going to say. By that time, there was lots of speculation considered, that that's what he was going to say, but everybody was waiting for the president. I'd had conversations over the years and I'd ask people, do you know where he is? People from the national security arena, and they would say, we do not know. What's extraordinary about the story is, first of all, the remarkable work done by the CIA, and then the coordination between the CIA and special operations to lead to that result. What's remarkable about Bill McRaven's, and I reminded the audience, he was also in charge of the team in Iraq that got Saddam Hussein. I mean, this is a man who truly, in the sort of tradition of the military, believes in action, yet at the same time, he's a man which we didn't talk that much about this evening, understands sort of that you can't kill your way to victory. In terms of that there has to be, as he talked about, have to be partnerships, has to be relationships, and all of that has made me, appreciate what he's done, both in the dramatic, but also in the longer run.
Now, you've talked to him before. I mean, you've mentioned you'd had several conversations, and you've talked with a lot of military and political leaders over the years. What is your sense of what they really think of President Obama? I mean, usually,
well,
as you know...
I'll just give you two that I know that I've interviewed, and they've spoken to me about it. He's already said it. I mean, he thinks that, he is Admiral McRaven's Bob Gates. I once said to him, what's your own judgment of the decision-making in foreign policy and national security policy of President Obama? And he said, well, obviously I was there, so you know what I'm going to say. But here's a guy who's worked with Ronald Reagan, Bob Gates, worked with George Bush as defense secretary, and then continued to work. And he has the highest admiration for the decision-making quality within those areas. I mean, clearly there are people who, I interviewed one of them today, John McCain, who has real questions about what happened in Benghazi and whether the right decisions were made or whether everything's been revealed. But in foreign policy, there is no training for foreign policy by a president. There's no sort of way you can go. You may be involved in the economic matters of the country and other social issues, but being in the White House, as the president said. So, I think it's true with this president, but I also think it's true with other presidents. It's the hardest decision. When it comes to national security and life and death and putting people in harm's way, those are where, as people might say, times that try men's soul.
Now, you think that Obama has done a pretty good job of kind of moving the Democratic Party toward more of a hawkish image.
I don't know where he's moved the Democratic Party. I mean, I think what you can only do, and I don't look at this as a political judgment, and I'm not going to be drawn into that conversation, because I'm a reporter who covers stories and asks questions, as you are doing with me. So I'm not going there. To think I hasn't moved, but I do think that you asked me, what do people who work with the president think about him? I gave you two. I don't have a lot of, but at the same time, there's John McCain, I've interviewed many times, and other Lindsey Graham, who raised different aspects of the criticism about the president and foreign policy decisions. But in terms of people in the national security arena, those are two. Another one is Michelle Flournoy, who you know. Who has praised this president's capacity to reach out and get opinions from a wide variety of sources.
One of the things that the conference tonight seemed surprised about was when the Admiral brought up General Petraeus, just kind of spontaneously.
Right.
Were you surprised by that?
No. I was not surprised because what you have to do if you do what I do is understand relationships. And I understood that he'd worked with General Petraeus, both in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And I'd done enough reading to understand that there was a relationship that had come out of those experiences. I didn't know he would go into it with the same sort of enthusiasm to talk about David Petraeus. And that was, I think for him, a moment of sadness because he admired him so much, thought he made a real contribution to the country, and yet at the same time he wasn't speaking to or quarreling with the decision that Petraeus made to resign. it was the natural follow-up to ask about General Allen, and he had the same thing. But these are men and women, Michelle Flournoy, who've operated at the highest level of defense policy and had to make tough decisions. They get to know each other, and I think they respect each other.
Now, have you heard similar feelings from other military leaders or people that you've talked with? Or because this is all the talk of the chattering class in Washington, kind of this unfortunate scandal.
It seems to me that, with respect to David Petraeus, all of us who've covered issues and who have reported them, as you have, as I have, and interviewed people over the years, know, David Petraeus because he was accessible, he was responsible. I mean, I think David Petraeus, like other generals that come before him, everybody from Omar Bradley to General Eisenhower to General MacArthur, had different aspects of their personality. But here was a man who clearly, had worked for several administrations, who clearly came back and clearly was enjoying the job that he was doing at the CIA, and clearly had a great sense of he understood his own image within the world of the press as well as the country, and you saw it that the way that he was accessible. And you have covered people, and those that are more accessible, to us. John McCain being another, John Kennedy being another, have a certain sense of, a connection with the press that others might not have. It is, in the end, I think, a whole question for the military to look at itself.
Now, more personal question before we let you go. CBS morning show, the
Yes.
conventional wisdom in the business is that morning shows are where hard news goes to die, but this is not the tact you've taken.
No,
How do you
it's
think
not.
it's going?
Well, I think it's going very well. I think we have a long way to go. I think we have an extraordinary group of people, men and women, who are working there, not because they want to be different or not, but they just, we didn't get up in the morning and say we want to be different than the Today Show, different than Good Morning America. We get up every morning and say we want to redefine what it is that we think is interesting about the world we live in, because we believe if you tell those stories in a smart way, there's a response to that. And I think you see that in terms of the people watching our show. You see that in terms of the context of it. And you see it because we trust not only our own instincts, we trust the instincts of a lot of very good reporters who work for CBS News and who now want to come and talk about stories and tell their stories. And I've always found news is enormously interesting, if it's written well and told well and interviewed well. And I think what I hope and have believed in the 20 years I've had my own show and now the year that I've had this program, that there will be a response from it.
Be honest. Are you just a little bit sorry the election's over?
You're talking to a political junkie. No, I tell you what, but I'm not sorry because I think it's an important time in the country's history. I really do, and I think it's one of those moments. I think it'll be interesting to see what this president does when there's not any restraint, if there was, in terms of re-election. It's one of those times. I think the country faces enormous problems, beginning with the economic issues. We'll see what happens. These now, while I think politics is poetry and governing is prose, as Mario Cuomo said, I also believe that it can be interesting. And at every time, what you're dealing with is the conflict not only of ideas but of personalities and the capacity to work. You know as much about the history of this town. And Lyndon Johnson had one style, and George Bush had another, and Bill Clinton had another. But it all, in the end, is about people, and the human aspect of this is what excites me about politics, about war, and what do they say? Politics is war without guns.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much, and thanks for the great conversation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you very much.